Hi, welcome. Today we're going to be working on a heart doily pattern. This is an 8.5 inch pattern, but it just barely will fit on a 12 cup coffee filter. We're going to go ahead and see how it looks if we dye it after we've cut it out. We're just going to be using food coloring, and I'll just go ahead and show you the whole process here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out my pattern. You'll notice that I leave the little bit here above the pattern. That's just as an extra space to help me glue on the pattern with staples or paper clips. And I'm going to take my coffee filter and smooth it out. And then I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half. And then in half again. And then at this point, we're going to go ahead and fold it into thirds. And I like to tuck in the side that has the two folds into the center. That just helps when you're working on more complicated patterns to help keep the paper from shifting while you're cutting. Okay, just make sure we have some nice creases. There we go. And then I'm just going to go ahead and line up my pattern. And since this pattern is very close, this part right here sometimes will go off the edge. I just need to watch that really closely as I'm lining it up, and maybe even just shift it down just a little bit extra. A lot of times I leave a little bit of a border around the edge, but I just want to make absolutely sure that I'm not going to go off the edge with that part of my pattern. I'm going to go ahead and staple. I'm going to put in 2 staples, and you'll see that I actually went off the edge with that staple. That's how close I am to the edge. So I'm going to do one more here, and even if I only get one little bit in there, still didn't get it. That's so crazy, but good for you to see. There we go. So just so you can see how very close I am to the edge here. So I don't want this paper to shift as I'm cutting, or else the top of this curve is going to be on like a flat edge of the paper and you'll be able to tell. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start by using my paper punches. So as long as you're comfortable with doing this, you can take off the confetti catcher and use it upside down so that you can line up. Use eye protection if you're worried about how powerful your punch is. Do what you are comfortable with. Sometimes it does. Sometimes the pieces do fly out. Sometimes I have a lot of hanging chads. It just kind of depends on the paper and my punch. So be prepared for a mess. Again, it doesn't really have to be exactly exact, but this is a good way if you want to be exact with the punches that you can be right on. With my smaller one, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the confetti catcher on and just do my best to get just punch right there on the different spots. It's a good hand strength activity. You might find that you need to adjust slightly. Your punch might be just slightly bigger than the ones shown. Just adjust for what you have available to you. This is also a fun one. You could experiment with different shapes of punches or different sizes of punches. You can alter the pattern a little bit. It's one of the fun things about snowflakes. You can change it up. Snowflakes are supposed to be unique, so you do what you like. Don't forget, you might need to empty out the confetti catcher. I know that I have actually bent some of my punches before. I just get busy creating and I forgot to empty the confetti catcher out. Usually I've done that with just my standard punches. I haven't actually done that with any of my fancy punches before. But remember to empty out the confetti catcher. If it starts getting really hard to punch, it might just be that your confetti catcher is full. Okay, so there we go. And then I'm just gonna go ahead, there's a few teeny little triangles here to cut out. Now if you didn't want to use a coffee filter, you could always use wrapping paper for this. It's just up to you. Newspaper also works great. Just make sure whatever you're using, you're able to punch through all 12 layers of the paper. If you do end up with little hanging chads on the back, you can always use your scissors to take them off rather than tear them. You don't want to ruin your snowflake by tearing them away. I'm going to go ahead here and cut out the center, and I'm just going to cut it out as it is. If you wanted to add details, now would be a great time to add details while it's still attached, because then you have a little bit more control. We're going to go ahead and just cut it out as is. And then we're going to go ahead and look at this one. I do really like this center. It reminds me a lot of the snowflakes that I take pictures of. There's a lot of macro photography that's done that's really neat. I have some links on my website if you want to go and see pictures of real snowflakes. And of course, that's the reason why I chose to have the 6-pointed snowflakes, or the 6-branch snowflakes, is because that's what we see in nature. But this is really similar to a lot of the ones that you find when you find the snowflakes in nature. And then I'm going to go ahead and I will cut out this heart. Just remember, as you're coming in, to come in at the same angle as the line. You don't want to come in and have a very blunt point. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead. And I do suggest that you use staples for this one if you're really, really close to an edge, just to make sure that the paper doesn't slide and you go off the edge. Just something that I have learned is that if you're really close to the edge and your paper slides just that teeny bit, you'll go off the edge. It's pretty easy to do. You can see that the different layers might not all be exact, but it looks like we did pretty good here. So just one of those little tips. And of course, the more complex your snowflake is, the more you'll want to have a stable spot to hold that paper and prevent it from sliding. So I didn't open up these hearts before. Usually when I'm designing, I would have cut out that heart shape first, which is what I did when I was designing, and make sure that I like the heart, and then continue on with the rest of the design of the snowflake. So here we go. I'll go ahead and open this up. I'll move these out of the way so you can see. And just as you're opening, just make sure that you're opening carefully so all those little pieces don't catch on each other. All the different little spots kind of have a possibility the little punches can kind of catch, so you don't want to tear your snowflake. So here we have our finished doily. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use some food coloring to dye it. So I just like to go ahead and use a plate just for easy cleanup, because this is food coloring. And I just have a little eyedropper here. This is also really good, good for your hand-eye coordination, your finger strength skills. I'm just gonna do a couple drops of food coloring to my water. You can see I got food coloring on my hands. It is messy, so just be prepared for that. And then of course, just if you're, whatever skills you're working on, can have your students work on that, but then we can just go ahead. The coffee filter absorbs the water. You can also do this with water-soluble markers. Sometimes I get really neat effects because the color that they use for the marker will actually divide up when it gets wet. So you'll color with a red, but then it will divide into like purple and red when it gets wet. You'll get kind of a cool tie-dye effect. So you could color with marker and then use the eyedropper or a spray bottle. I mean, just depending on if you're working on finger strength or hand strength. And we're just gonna go ahead. I wanted to do it this way with it already cut out to see how we end up with the color. If it ends up, because a lot of times on the edges it will be darker, so I was wondering how it will settle in along all the little edges of the punches. So I'm tempted to smooth this out, but I actually want to see how it will turn out if I don't smooth it out here in this spot that's sticking up. You'll see this one looks like it's going to be darker, just the way it's sitting. The different wrinkles will probably be a little bit darker, but I'm going to do just a few more drops here, and then we're going to go ahead and we are just going to let it sit. Okay, here we are. I'm just going to show you how it turned out. We're going to go ahead and take it off this plate. You can see it does leave a little bit on the plate, but that comes off in the dishwasher. And I'll just spread it out. Hopefully you can see it did leave a little bit of darker dye around the edges. It was just the food coloring, but it does leave a little bit of darker dye around the edges. I was hoping it would leave a little bit of darker around the punches that we did, but it didn't didn't really, mostly just around the larger outside edges. It did around the hearts and the inside, but not so much around the punches. Anyway, I just wanted to let you see how it turned out, and I hope you're having a great day, and thank you for watching.